I'll never forget the day I caught her red-handed. She was standing by the fence, smug grin on her face, posting my private lake online like it was hers to sell. $60,000 to the highest bidder, pristine lake access, the ad said. When I confronted her, she looked me dead in the eye and hissed, "I'll bury you under that water before you stop me." Before watching full story, comment below from where you're watching. Also, like and subscribe for more stories. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just a nosy neighbor problem. This was war, and I wasn't about to lose the one place I had fought to protect, the one place that carried my late wife's memory. Every morning, I sit by this lake with Max, my loyal golden retriever. The soft ripples of water, the willows swaying in the breeze. It's more than land. It's the last piece of a dream I shared with Emily. Years ago, before tragedy struck, she would flip through glossy travel magazines, pointing at photos of quiet ranches with lakeside cabins. "Someday, Marcus," she'd whisper, "we'll retire by the water, a place where time slows down." But fate had other plans. 3 years ago, a drunk driver ran a red light. Emily was gone in an instant. Just like that, the laughter, the plans, the late-night whispers about the future, all ripped away. I couldn't stand the silence of our old house. Every corner held a memory too painful to bear. So I sold everything and bought this ranch. 5 acres of peace with a 2-acre lake at its heart, the exact spot from a magazine clipping Emily. Once circled, Max was all I had left of her. She had given me the puppy just 2 weeks before the accident, her last gift. Every day since, that dog has been my shadow, my protector, my reason to get out of bed. Out here, surrounded by nature, I found a fragile kind of healing. The town was small, the people kind enough but not invasive. Perfect. Until she arrived. 6 months ago, Patricia Morgan moved in down the road. 40-something, loud, dressed like she was still running corporate board meetings. Within days, she declared herself president of the Meadowbrook Improvement Committee, a title she made up out of thin air. She knocked on doors with her fake smile, shoving petitions under noses about economic development and unlocking potential. Most folks rolled their eyes, but tolerated her. Small towns learned to deal with eccentrics. But Patricia wasn't just eccentric. She was desperate. Rumors trickled in at the feed store and grocery shop. She'd lost her real estate license in the city after being caught forging signatures, owed banks over $200,000, changed her last name, dyed her hair, and fled here to start fresh. But debts don't just vanish. Word was she owed money to some very dangerous people. At first, I ignored her. I didn't move out here to get tangled in gossip. But Patricia wasn't content to mind her own business. She saw my lake not as sacred ground, not as Emily's dream, but as her golden ticket. She cooked up a grand scheme, Patricia Lake Eco Resort. She printed glossy brochures, hired a drone to take photos of my lake, and built a flashy website, promising cabins, luxury camping, and boat rentals. And at the center of her plan, my water, my sanctuary, my last connection to Emily. I had spent 15 years as a real estate appraiser before retiring. I'd seen scammers pull every trick in the book, phony deeds, forged titles, land disputes twisted until the rightful owner was bled dry. But never, in all my years, had I seen someone bold enough to put a man's lake online as if she owned it. The first time I realized what she'd done, my phone nearly exploded with calls. Dozens of strangers were asking if I'd take $55,000, cash for the property. One man even said he was flying in from California the next day. My stomach dropped. My sanctuary, reduced to a commodity in Patricia's scam. And that was only the beginning. The messages wouldn't stop. My inbox flooded with offers, questions, and even threats from people who thought they'd already bought my lake. By sunrise, I had over 50 missed calls. Each one was a nail of rage hammering into my skull. I stormed down the gravel road to Patricia's house, Max trailing close, ears pinned back as if he could sense the storm brewing inside me. Patricia was in her garden, fake pearls around her neck, watering roses like she was the queen of the neighborhood. "Morning, Marcus. Lovely day, isn't it?" she chirped, not even glancing up. "Are you insane?" I shouted, my voice cracking across the quiet morning. "You're selling my property online." She lowered the watering can slowly, her smile never faltering. But her eyes, cold, calculating, met mine. "Oh, Marcus, don't be dramatic. That lake has been sitting there underused for years. I'm simply helping our community realize its potential. Jobs, tourism, progress. You should be thanking me." My fists clenched. "That lake is mine. My deed is ironclad. My taxes are paid. You have no right." Patricia tilted her head and gave a short, mocking laugh. "Rights? Documentation? Please, property lines out here are murky at best, and I have friends at the county office who say your so-called ownership might not be as clear as you think." It was a bald-faced lie. But she said it with such confidence it almost made me question myself. Almost. Then I noticed her hand behind her back. She was holding her phone, her thumb, moving quickly. Before I could react, Patricia's entire demeanor changed. Her eyes went wide and she screamed like she was being murdered. "No! Please don't hit me! Somebody help! He threatened to bury me under the lake." She stumbled backward, knocking over her rose pots, wailing like a banshee. Max barked frantically at the sudden chaos. My heart pounded, realization hitting me too late. She was already on the phone with 911. 5 minutes later, sirens split the morning silence. 2 police cruisers screeched into Patricia's driveway, 4 officers leaping out with hands on their weapons. Patricia ran toward them, mascara streaking down her face. "Thank God you're here," she sobbed. "He threatened to kill me. He said he'd bury me under the lake." The lead officer turned to me, voice hard. "Sir, step back, hands where we can see them." "Officer, she's lying. She's trying to sell my land online," I protested, holding up my phone with screenshots of her listings. "Calm down, sir. Step back." The officer's tone left. No room for argument. Max growled low at their boots, and I had to grab his collar to keep him from lunging. The next 30 minutes dragged like hours. They separated us for statements. Patricia put on her Oscar-worthy performance. Tears, shaking, hands pointing at me like I was a monster. She spun a story about me harassing her, threatening her life, even claiming I'd been squatting illegally on public land. I tried to explain about the lake, showing them the posts, the fake listings, the property deed. But the officers looked skeptical until Mrs. Henderson showed up. She lived in the house between ours, an elderly widow with more cameras on her property than a Vegas casino. The officers pulled up her footage right there on a tablet. The video showed me standing perfectly still, Max at my side, while Patricia threw herself backward into her plants and started screaming. The sergeant's face hardened. He turned to Patricia. "Ma'am, filing a false police report is a serious offense." Her tears dried instantly. "That video doesn't show everything. He threatened me before." "Enough," the sergeant cut her off. He rubbed his forehead, clearly tired of her act. "Both of you need to keep your distance. Sir, don't step foot on her property again. Ma'am, don't call us unless there's real danger." The cruisers pulled away, and Patricia smirked at me over their shoulders. A smug little twist of her lips that told me she thought she'd won, even after being caught. Max and I walked home slowly, my blood boiling. She had lied to the cops, tried to frame me, and walked away without a single consequence. But as I crossed my property line, something clicked in the back of my mind. 15 years in real estate had taught me one thing. Every scam leaves cracks, and Patricia had just opened the door to her biggest mistake. That night, I couldn't sleep. Patricia's smirk haunted me. She'd already shown she was willing to lie to police, and if she could spin one false accusation, what was stopping her from trying again? I brewed a pot of coffee and sat at my dining table, which quickly disappeared under a mountain of old survey maps, property records, and tax documents. Max lay at my feet, occasionally nudging my hand as if to remind me I wasn't alone. Patricia thought she was clever, but I'd spent 15 years as a real estate appraiser. I knew the tricks scammers used: loopholes, forgotten parcels, easements, hidden in dusty archives. Every property had a story written in paper, and I was determined to read every page. Meanwhile, Patricia was escalating. Every morning at 8 sharp, she paraded groups of potential investors right past my fence line. From my window, I watched as she handed out glossy brochures with photos of my lake, photoshopped cabins, and docks plastered across the water. She'd even branded it Patricia Lake Resort and Spa. It was almost surreal. Max barked every time they got too close, tail stiff, his hackles raised. Patricia just smiled and told investors, "Don't worry, the current occupant won't be here much longer." Her audacity was breathtaking, but desperation makes people reckless. On the third night, exhaustion was pulling me under. My eyes burned from staring at yellowed survey books. Numbers swam before me, lines on the map blurring into each other. I almost quit. Then my eyes fell on Emily's photo, the one I kept on the mantel. She was standing at this very lake, arms stretched wide, laughing at the sunset just 2 days before the accident. "Promise me we'll never leave this place, Marcus," she'd said. I'd promised, and a promise to Emily was not one I would ever break. Fueled by that memory, I dove back into the records. And at 2:15 a.m., buried in a 1960 survey book, I found it, a tiny rectangle of land, 75 square meters, wedged between Patricia's boundary and my lake access. Marked only as Plot X, ownership uncertain. My pulse quickened. Cross-referencing tax records confirmed it. The last listed owner had died in 1987. No heirs, no claims. No one had paid taxes on it for nearly 4 decades. The county had simply forgotten it. This wasn't just a random piece of dirt. This was the choke point. Patricia's driveway led straight to it. Without crossing Plot X, she couldn't legally reach the lake. My hands shook as I spread maps across the table. Satellite images confirmed it. The forgotten strip cut her off completely. Patricia's so-called resort was nothing but smoke without it. Max whined softly, sensing my excitement. I scratched behind his ears. "We've got her, boy." At dawn, I was standing at the county land office before it even opened. Rita, the clerk, had known me for years. When I explained what I'd found, her eyes widened. "Oh, that one," she said, pulling dusty files from a cabinet. "Joseph Wilson's land. Died without a will. County should have claimed it for back taxes, but it slipped through the cracks. 37 years unpaid. Total owed? $380. "Can I buy it?" I asked. "Not directly. By law, it has to go to auction. 3 days from now." She leaned in, lowering her voice. "But honestly, Marcus, who else would want 75 square meters of scrubland?" I smiled. "You'd be surprised." And I was right. By that afternoon, Patricia had already heard. At the grocery store, she cornered me in the cereal aisle, voice dripping with fake casualness. "Marcus, I hear you're interested in that little patch of dirt. Doing some gardening, are we?" I kept my face neutral. "Just tidying up boundaries." Her eyes narrowed. She forced a laugh, too brittle to sound real. "Well, may the best bidder win, though I can't imagine wasting money on worthless land." But her presence at the courthouse later that day told me the truth. She knew it wasn't worthless, and she was worried. Good, because I had 3 days to prepare, and Patricia had no idea I was about to play her at her own game. Auction day dawned gray and drizzly, the kind of weather that made the courthouse steps slick and cold underfoot. But inside, the room buzzed with quiet tension. Only a handful of people had shown up, most of them curious locals. Yet, I knew Patricia wouldn't miss this for the world. Sure enough, she swept in wearing a sharp navy suit and heels that clicked like gunshots on the tile. A leather briefcase swung from her hand, her chin high, radiating false confidence. She gave me a smug glance as if the outcome was already written in her favor. But I had a secret weapon, a retired theater professor named William Johnson, who owed me a favor from years back. I'd asked him to play the part of a wealthy developer looking to assemble small parcels for future projects. William loved the idea, called it rural espionage, and rehearsed lines like a Broadway script. The auctioneer cleared his throat. Plot X, 75 square meters, minimum bid $500. Do I hear 5? I raised my hand. 500. 6, Patricia snapped immediately, her voice tight. 1,500. William jumped in, fumbling with 2 cell phones, looking every bit the distracted investor. Patricia's composure cracked. She hadn't expected competition. 2,000. 2,100, I countered smoothly. 5,000, William barked dramatically. This parcel is exactly what my clients need. The room stirred. Patricia's face flushed, her hand trembling as she raised her paddle again. 7,500. 10,000, she nearly shouted, standing up now. The auctioneer banged the gavel. 10,000 going once, twice, sold. Silence hung heavy. Patricia adjusted her suit jacket, trying to mask her confusion with a smile. She had just dropped 10 grand on a strip of land so small it could barely fit a garden shed. In the parking lot afterward, William collected his $500 fee, still chuckling. Did you see her face? She thought she outmaneuvered you. Classic. But what Patricia didn't know was that while she wasted $10,000 on Plot X, I had quietly arranged to purchase the adjoining strip, Plot Y, through a private sale. Cost me $800. No competition, no drama. And, unlike her strip, mine was the key piece. Because without my land, her shiny new Plot X was nothing but a sidewalk to nowhere. 2 mornings later, at 4:30 a.m., 3 trucks rumbled into my driveway loaded with steel posts, concrete, and chain-link fencing. I had hired Jake Morrison and his crew, the best fence builders in 3 counties. Jake, a mountain of a man with arms like tree trunks, grinned at me as he studied the plans. 3-meter fence, electronic gate, security cameras. You preparing? For war, Marcus? Something like that, I said. By flashlight, his crew moved with military precision. Augers dug holes, concrete mixed, posts set perfectly plumb. The whir of power tools filled the dawn air. Max supervised proudly, his tail wagging as if he knew this was for Emily, too. By 6 a.m., the skeleton of the fence stretched across Plot Y like a fortress wall. At 7, the mesh was secured, topped with angled deterrent wires. At 7:30, solar-powered security cameras blinked red, recording every angle. By 7:45, a keypad-controlled gate locked into place. Right on schedule, Patricia stormed out in a silk bathrobe, hair disheveled, her face twisted in rage. What the hell is this noise? Stop it immediately. I stood calmly, Max at my side. Morning, Patricia. Just a little property improvement. Early bird gets the worm. Her eyes darted to the fence, and I saw the exact moment realization dawned. You can't do this. That's my access road to the lake. Correction, I said, holding up my freshly stamped deed. This is Plot Y, which I legally own. Your Plot X ends at this fence. Congratulations on your $10,000 path to nowhere. Her face turned scarlet. I'll call the police. Go ahead, I replied, pointing at the building permits hanging in a plastic sleeve. Perfectly legal. Working hours start at 4:30 for agricultural properties, and I've got all the permits right here. By the time Jake's crew packed up, the transformation was complete. 8 feet of steel mesh, topped with wire, anchored in concrete. Signs read, private property. No trespassing. Under video surveillance. Max barked once, as if to punctuate the victory. At precisely 8 a.m., Patricia emerged again, this time dressed in full real estate regalia, navy suit, pearl necklace, portfolio in hand. Behind her rolled a convoy of luxury cars carrying 25 investors. She led them like a tour guide, gesturing toward the future resort. But when they rounded the corner and saw my gleaming fence blocking lake access, the entire group froze. Confusion spread. Then anger. "Where's the lake you promised?" one investor snapped. "This looks like fraud," another barked. Patricia stammered, sweat beading on her forehead. It's just a minor boundary issue. Nothing to worry about." That was my cue. I walked out casually, Max trotting at my side. "Morning, folks. Lovely day, isn't it? Just so you know, this is my land. That strip Patricia bought over there doesn't reach the lake without crossing my property. So unless you all can fly, there's no legal access to the water. Phones came out, lawyers were called, investors shouted about refunds. One even threatened the FBI. Within minutes, the convoy sped away, leaving Patricia standing pale and trembling. "You've ruined everything," she hissed at me. "No," I said evenly. "I've protected what's mine." And for the first time, Patricia looked like she realized she wasn't the predator anymore. She was cornered prey. For a few blissful hours after the investor debacle, I thought maybe Patricia would finally back down. But people like her don't quit. They double down. The very next morning, 2 police cruisers rolled up my driveway, lights flashing. I froze, coffee mug in hand, Max growling at the window. This time, Patricia had come prepared. She stepped out of her car in a pale blouse and arm sling, her face painted with just the right touch of makeup to look fragile. And she wasn't alone. Beside her stood Jeremy Peterson, a nervous newcomer to town who had bought the old Baker place. "Officers," Patricia's voice quivered like she'd rehearsed it in a mirror. "Yesterday, Marcus assaulted me by the fence. Jeremy witnessed everything. He pushed me. I fell and injured my arm." Jeremy avoided eye contact, mumbling, "Yeah, I saw him push her." My stomach twisted, but I kept my voice calm. "Officers, I have 8 security cameras on my property. Every inch of that fence is recorded. Would you like to review yesterday's footage?" Patricia's mask slipped just for a heartbeat. She hadn't noticed the cameras. "Videos can be faked," she said quickly. "Everyone knows about deep fakes these days," but Officer Kim pulled out a department tablet. "We can verify authenticity, ma'am. Mr. Marcus, please share the files." Inside, Max pressed close to my leg as I pulled up the footage. At exactly 4:07 p.m., the cameras showed Patricia approaching the fence alone. She kicked it, rattled the gate, then deliberately scraped her own arm against a protruding bolt before walking away. No Jeremy in sight. The room was silent, except for the faint sound of Patricia's angry breathing. Jeremy's face went pale. "Mr. Peterson," Officer Rodriguez said sharply, "do you want to revise your statement? Filing a false report is a felony." Jeremy crumbled like wet paper. "She offered me $5,000 to back her up. I'm sorry, my daughter's sick. I needed the money." His voice broke. "I didn't know she had cameras." Patricia spun on him, fury breaking through, her fake fragility. "You idiot! I should have known better than to trust you." That was enough. The officers cuffed her on the spot for filing a false police report and tampering with a witness. She spat venom at me as they led her away. "This isn't over. You'll regret crossing me, Marcus. I have connections you can't even imagine." But even after the police drove her off, I felt no relief. If anything, I was more uneasy, because Patricia was like a cornered animal now. And a cornered animal is dangerous. By evening, I found out what she meant by connections. My phone buzzed nonstop with notifications. Patricia had launched a full-blown smear campaign online. Dozens of Facebook posts, community forum rants, even fake screenshots of messages I'd never written. "Local maniac threatens single woman's life," one headline screamed. Violent widower hoards community resources, another read. She even went so far as to suggest I'd killed Emily for insurance money. My wife, the love of my life, reduced to a slanderous punchline in her twisted game. Neighbors started calling, worried, confused. Some even asked if the rumors were true. Reporters left voicemails. Strangers sent me threats. Max whimpered at my side, sensing my turmoil. For a moment, I considered defending myself point by point, but then I remembered something from my appraisal days. Never argue with a liar on their terms. You drown in their mud. The only way to beat them is with hard, undeniable truth. So I went to work. I compiled everything: her fraudulent online listings, screenshots of her investor pitches, the police reports, and the security footage of her faking the injury. Then I dug deeper, using her real name, Patricia Coleman. And what I found was staggering. Florida, 2018. Convicted of forging property deeds. Texas, 2020. Arrested for a fake vacation rental scam. California, 2022. Fled before trial on embezzlement charges. She wasn't just a nuisance neighbor. She was a career criminal. I packaged it all into one post, the truth about Patricia Coleman. I included mugshots, arrest records, video clips, even testimonials from defrauded victims who'd contacted me. And at the end, I wrote, I'm just a widower trying to live in peace by the lake my wife dreamed of. Patricia Coleman is a serial fraudster who preys on communities like ours. Let the evidence speak for itself. Within an hour, it had 500 shares. By midnight, over 6,000. Local news picked it up. Someone even created a website archiving all her scams across 7 states. Patricia's carefully constructed. Image shattered overnight. Where she once had whispers of support, now she had an army of enemies. Investors demanding refunds, strangers mocking her, neighbors slamming doors in her face. And yet, I knew she wasn't finished. If she couldn't beat me with lies or police, she'd try something darker, something that would cut deeper than slander ever could. The morning after my exposé went viral, the neighborhood felt different. People honked their horns and waved. When they passed my driveway, strangers left thank you notes in my mailbox. For the first time, the tide was turning in my favor. But Patricia wasn't finished. Max refused his breakfast that morning, pawing at his water bowl outside by the fence. He barked, frantic, nose pointing at the shimmering liquid. I stepped closer and my stomach dropped. An oily sheen floated on the surface, catching the light. My blood ran cold. I dumped the bowl instantly, scooped a sample into a jar, and called the vet. Dr. Martinez's voice turned sharp the moment I described it. Bring Max in immediately, and bring the water sample. Thank God for Max's instincts. Tests confirmed it. Anti-freeze, sweet tasting, deadly to dogs. Patricia had tried to poison my best friend. That was the moment something inside me snapped. Fraud was one thing. Lies and slander were another. But going after Max, the last living link to Emily, was crossing a line I would never forgive. I filed another police report, adding attempted animal cruelty to Patricia's growing list of crimes. But this time, I didn't just stop at police. I went bigger. I met with Robert Anderson, one of the toughest attorneys in the state. His office was the kind of place where the leather chairs smelled like old money and the walls were lined with case trophies. He reviewed my thick stack of evidence with growing disbelief. "Mr. Marcus," he said finally, adjusting his glasses, "in 30 years, I've rarely seen a fraud case this clear-cut. She's violated multiple state and federal statutes. Fraud, defamation, filing false police reports, bribery, attempted poisoning. The list goes on. We'll file both civil and criminal complaints, and with her history, no prosecutor will cut her a deal." For hours, his team compiled exhibits, screenshots of her fraudulent ads, security footage, statements from investors. She scammed. They even unearthed outstanding warrants from Florida, Texas, and California. Patricia hadn't just been running from me. She'd been running for years. Meanwhile, Patricia's world was collapsing. Investors she'd conned were now organizing, demanding their money back. Her mortgage company called about missed payments. Her car was repossessed right out of her driveway. Even lawyers refused to touch her case. One bluntly told her, "You don't need an attorney. You need a miracle." The community turned, too. At the town hall meeting, victim after victim stood up to share how she'd conned them. Phony promises, stolen deposits, poisoned trust. The vote was unanimous. Patricia was banned from all community events. Persona non grata. Her house went up for sale the following week. She slashed the price desperately low, but no one wanted it. Too much baggage. "That's the fraud house," people whispered, and then came Judgment Day. The courtroom was packed. Patricia looked gaunt in an ill-fitting suit, her once perfect posture sagging. Her lawyer, a public defender who'd clearly drawn the short straw, flipped nervously through notes. The prosecutor, Jennifer Walsh, wasted no time. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Patricia Coleman is a predator who has left a trail of victims across 7 states. She's forged signatures, stolen deposits, defamed neighbors, and even attempted to kill an innocent animal. Today, we prove that justice comes even to the quiet corners of this country." The evidence was devastating. Security footage of her faking injuries, audio of her bribing Jeremy, records of her fake lake listings, testimony from 23 defrauded investors, and the poisoned water sample sealed in evidence. Even Max made an appearance, calm, loyal, sitting beside me as the prosecutor explained how Patricia had tried to take his life. Several jurors visibly recoiled. Patricia's defense was pitiful. Stress, financial pressure, momentary lapses in judgment. But how do you excuse 12 years of fraud across multiple states? When she took the stand, she tried one last gambit, painting herself as the victim. She pointed at me, claiming I'd orchestrated everything to steal her land. The prosecutor buried her with one question. "Then why were you selling his lake before you ever met him?" The jury deliberated for less than an hour. Guilty. On all counts. The judge's words rang like iron. "Patricia Coleman, you are a career criminal who has destroyed lives and shown no remorse. I sentence you to 18 years in federal prison, with no possibility of parole for 5 years. You are also ordered to pay restitution totaling $317,000. Patricia collapsed at the defense table. Shackles clinked as guards led her away. Her eyes found mine one last time, burning with hatred. But beneath it was something else. Defeat. It was over. 1 month later, life finally began to feel normal again. The lake sparkled under the autumn sun, willows dancing in the breeze. Max chased butterflies along the shore, older now but still full of energy. For the first time in months, the air felt light, clean, free of Patricia's poison. The community gathered for a barbecue by the water. On paper, it was just a neighborhood cookout, but everyone knew what it really was. A celebration that the nightmare was over. Thomas Murphy clapped me on the back as he handed me a plate of ribs. "Marcus, you stood up to a bully and won. Took guts to fight her the way you did. Emily would be proud." The mention of her name caught me off guard. For a moment, the ache of loss returned, sharp and raw. But then warmth followed. He was right. I had kept my promise to her. I had protected our dream. Linda Murphy leaned in with a wink. "Did you hear? Patricia's in federal prison in Kentucky. Kitchen duty. From resort queen to washing dishes." Laughter rippled through the group. Even Sarah Wilson, our town's unofficial news network, chimed in. "It's all over the internet. People call her the fraud queen now. There's even a website tracking all her scams." I smiled faintly, though inside I felt something more complicated. Not pity exactly, but recognition. Patricia had intelligence, drive, ambition. If she'd put those gifts to honest use, she might have built something real. Instead, she chose lies and theft, and it destroyed her. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky with streaks of pink and gold, I slipped away from the crowd to sit on the dock. My fishing rod leaned against the railing, untouched. This was never about fish. It was about peace, about Emily. I whispered to the breeze as if she could hear me. "We did it, Em. The lake is safe." Max padded over, dripping wet from another adventure, and curled at my side. Together we watched the water shimmer in the fading light. For the first time, since Patricia's arrival, the ranch felt whole again. Justice doesn't always come in grand gestures. Sometimes it's a fence standing tall, sometimes it's a courtroom verdict, and sometimes it's as simple as a dog wagging his tail by a lake you fought to protect. Patricia was gone, locked away where she could hurt no one else. The community was stronger, bound together by the battle we'd survived. And me? I had my peace back. Emily's memory lived on in every ripple, every sunset, every quiet morning beside the water, and that was enough. So, I'll leave you with this. Have you ever dealt with a nightmare neighbor? Someone who thought they could push you around, take what wasn't theirs, or turn the community against you? How did you handle it? Comment your story below. I read every single one. Don't forget to like this video if it kept you hooked, and subscribe for more stories of justice, karma, and neighbors who learn their lessons the hard way. Until next time, remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't dramatic at all. It's simply protecting what's yours.